Professor Layton and the Last Specter is the fourth game released in the main series. The game was released by Level 5 in 2011 in North America on the Nintendo DS, and manages to be a worthy sequel in the series, though I think it was definitely a step back from Unwound Future. The story of the game goes something like this. Professor Layton and the Last Specter takes place 3 years before the events of Professor Layton and the Curious Village, in a fictional English village known as Mist Hallory. In Mist Hallory, citizens have long spoken of a legend of a specter who rose from the mist to defend the village whenever the specter's flute was played. Lately, a monster who seems to be this mythical specter is attacking the village in the middle of the night, destroying homes and buildings. It's up to Professor Layton, his associate Emmy, and Luke Triton to figure out the mystery of the village and save it from destruction. The plot of The Last Specter has an interesting premise, but not the greatest execution. What I liked about it was that it was kind of a prequel story. This one takes place 3 years before the first game in the series, and we see how Layton and Luke meet and become good friends. However, I don't think that they really capitalized on this opportunity too much. Luke basically acts like he acts in every other game for the most part, though they did do some interesting things like talk about his lineage, his family, etc. In terms of the actual plot, like the mystery, I think that this game had a pretty weak story. What I mean by weak is that the solution or the ending was pretty goddamn terrible. I mean, I complained about it in the first two games and when I reviewed them, and how the ending to those ones were completely illogical and ridiculous. Without spoiling, let's just say that the ending to this one is one of the most absurd things I've ever seen in my life. Again, like I said in my first review, these are Professor Layton games, and I know that it's a cartoon and they can take some liberties, but it's got kind of a realistic setting and it relies a lot on logic. It's a game about puzzles and figuring things out, but you see that the solution to the mystery is the most ridiculous, absurd thing, like a Japanese monster movie ending. It's so... it's really hard to explain, but it's really frustrating as well. I like the new character, Emmy, though. She was spunky and a lot of fun. Still, she's not enough to save the story of this game, which wasn't particularly exciting, memorable, or satisfying. Still, I think it's on par with the first two games of the series, but it's a step back from Unwound Future. The game's puzzles are exactly what you'd expect. You've got your logic puzzles, your math puzzles, your everything puzzles. I really don't have too much to say. What I do like is that there's a lot more puzzles in this game. I think an extra 100? No, not 100. There's significantly more puzzles in this game, which was a welcome change. Also, the game had a new feature called Professor Layton's London Life, which was an additional role-playing game for the system, where you could interact with various characters from a town called Little London, and it added a lot of gameplay, though I didn't even bother with it. The game also has a bunch of mini-games, like playing with a toy train, playing with fish, a puppet theater, but again, I don't really get into this kind of stuff, I just play the main story. But still, it makes the game worth its bucks. The graphics in the game are pretty on par with the rest of them. With the 4 DS games, I mean. I really like the design of Mist Hallory and how it was kind of like Venice, I guess, in a way, with all of its waterways and such. But I still think it was a lot similar looking to the first game in that you played in an English village. Still, the graphics in the game were good enough to be interesting, and I don't really have a problem with them. The music in the game was pretty good. I don't think there was actually a game in this series with bad music. I think the music is pretty solid in all the games, and this one is no exception. However, like the rest of the game, it's nothing terribly noteworthy, exciting, or worth calling grandma about. It's just pretty well on par. In conclusion, I think that the best way to describe Professor Layton and the Last Specter is again on par. It's a game that uses the same elements of the tried and true formula of Professor Layton and doesn't make too much of an attempt to change things up or make things terribly more interesting. The story of the game is not bad, but not great, and the ending is particularly insulting to my intelligence and any other reasonable person's intelligence. The graphics and music are solid, and the puzzles are just what you'd expect. That's basically how I could sum up this game. It's just what you'd expect. Not that that's a bad thing, but you're kind of hoping that the game would keep its occasional rise after Professor Layton in the Unbound Future, but this doesn't add too much to the series. Still, it's a solid game, and if you like the other ones, then don't pass this one up. Thanks for watching.